Well, welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Joining today from Hy-Vee, our dietitian, Andrea Miller. Andrea, welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing great.
Glad you're here today, and we're going to be talking, as produce in the background gives the hint, we're talking about plant-based eating, which I know nothing about, not that I'm an expert in anything, but this one I certainly am looking forward to learning about. And you're tying this into Earth Day, or Earth Month, if you will, and boy, I don't even know where you start with this one when we're even considering going to this. So the transition, I guess, could be the first place to look at. So does it mean I'm going vegan if I'm going plant-based?
Yeah, so let's start with that because that's usually a common question that people have. This is kind of a buzzword out there in terms of diets and products. You'll see that stated a lot more on food products. So that's something to consider. So let's talk about what it is so you have a better understanding. We'll kind of start with that. So vegan is its own thing, meaning consuming no animal products at all. And then there's various versions of being vegetarian. So there could be where you eat everything except for animal foods, or you exclude all animal foods, but you eat eggs, or you exclude animal foods, but you consume dairy. So there's various versions of being a vegetarian. So plant-based eating is more of a style or a way of eating. And to be honest, we probably will have a more difficult time thinking about a style or a way of eating because our society likes to put rules onto things, and it likes to create diets out of things that really are just a way of eating. And so it's something to remember that plant-based eating is more of a style. There's no rigid rules or regulations that go with plant-based eating. But on the foundation, what it does include is a majority of your food that you're eating coming from plants. So if we look at, our My Plate, most of the food groups include foods from plants. So fruits, vegetables, grains, and plant-based proteins. So that's a really good start in that regard. It does not exclude animal foods or dairy. So we consume both animal foods, and it can include eggs and dairy in moderate amounts.
Well, that's good because I'm thinking, I don't know how you would totally dive in head first into this. So
right.
I like that you set the standard there, that there's no boundaries to plant-based eating.
Right.
And I'm suspecting that if you're thinking, you want to include more plant-based items in your diet, this is the route you can look at. So if we're looking into this space here and you're lucky enough to share some info with me ahead of time here, because again, not too familiar on how to make this work, but how much meat plus dairy do you need I guess even if you're considering going to this, looking at this diet?
Well, that's a really good question to consider. The kind of general answer is meat foods or foods that come from animals or dairy foods are highly nutrient dense. So what that means is you get a lot of nutrition from a small amount of that food. So with that, the proteins are also very quality proteins. So any animal protein is considered a quality protein. And so it's complete. And so you don't need to kind of combine foods in order to get all of the amino acids, for instance, that we need from protein. And so we don't have to eat as much of it as we think we do in order to get the nutrition from it. So for instance, we could easily get all the nutrition that's in meat from a 3-ounce portion. Right? So we don't have to eat, a half a pound of meat in order to get the protein, vitamin D, iron, and all the other vitamins and minerals that come from meat. Same thing with dairy. We need about 2 to 3 servings of dairy a day. So that's a 1 cup equivalent of milk, and then 1.5 ounces of cheese is considered a serving, and a cup of yogurt. So 2 to 3 of those servings each day to get the concentrated nutrition that's in dairy foods. So that's kind of a reminder. And the interesting thing is this isn't anything new, so the whole kind of term of plant-based eating is kind of resurfacing or surfacing, But if you look at the food groups all within themselves, it's already kind of designed to eat this way. It's just, again, more of a general framework versus having you follow a specific rigid rules and guidelines.
Yeah, that's good information to know. And, you know, that to me right there just breaks down a huge barrier of even trying to wrap your head around trying this out. When we were first talking about this topic, this next question is exactly what I was thinking. And it's what is the plant-based meat alternative products? Because I feel like if you're talking about plant-based eating, that's what we're hearing, or it's to me anyway, seems to be the most attention is, you know, getting the unnamed, I guess you could say the unnamed meat product. And I like how this is shaped in here. If it literally is shaped like a chicken nugget, is it okay to eat? You're saying throw all that out of the way and just look at the ingredients. Right.
That's, yes. I really wanted to talk about this piece of it because the marketing world is grabbing onto this term plant-based eating. So I don't want people to feel, one, that they have to buy alternative foods if they're going to eat the real thing. Okay, so it's just kind of looking at more amount or quantity. And also don't necessarily think it's a nutritious product simply because it says plant-based eating. So any of these alternative foods, you want to look at the ingredients. And for instance, if it is a alternative burger and it has black beans or chickpeas and ground up vegetables and different things and spices and seasonings in it, that might be a nice option. You're getting a naturally sourced kind of plant-based protein there with some little different flavor. So it doesn't mean you're never going to eat a hamburger again, but instead of eating that, 3 to 4 times a week, maybe one of those days you insert, this black bean burger. Rather, if it's instead more of a compilation of different flours and fillers and things like that, that's not going to be any more nutritious, if at all nutritious, compared to eating the real thing in a moderate amount to give you the nutrition that your body needs.
Well, that answers my question on that one, because I've tried some of these and some of them are really good and some of them are really bad. And then you compare them up against just, the regular meats. And you're right, that does call into question, so I'm glad you spelled that out. Another good question that would also come to mind for me as well, and it's because we've talked about dieting like the Mediterranean diet or some of these things that have similarities, but how would you compare the plant-based eating to like a Mediterranean diet?
Sure. So you can kind of compare and contrast this one. So the Mediterranean diet is an example of plant-based eating. So you can look at it that way. The differences though is the Mediterranean diet is based off of foods that are local to the countries that border the Mediterranean Sea. So it's literally based on those foods that are in that region. So for us in the middle of the US, right, there's a little bit difference.
Not as many choices, right? Or different choices, different choices.
So there's different choices. We might not have some of those foods that are specifically noted on the Mediterranean diet in abundance, in the Midwest. They may be highly expensive because of transport from those regions. So again, I encourage people to kind of take a step back, and the foundation of the Mediterranean diet is plant-based eating. They balance it, their fruits and vegetables, whole grains. They incorporate a moderate amount of meat and dairy. And so that's something to consider, is think of what the diet is made up of versus feeling like you have to specifically follow each, detailed line on that diet. So again, Mediterranean style of eating, or the Mediterranean diet, is an example of plant-based eating.
Well, you're giving us some options to work with here. And that would take you to a question of mine would be, if you are just looking to just a starting spot, or even trying to get maybe your kids to get involved with this, what would be some quick, fast, plant-based items that you would introduce for the kiddos to try to bring them on board if you're going to also, as a parent, go through the motions?
Sure. So ideally, you're eating about the same things, right? And maybe the amounts vary or the textures might vary compared to what you're eating versus your kids or other members of your family are eating. So that's the first thing to remember. The first kind of look at it, I would say, is try to add some color. If you try to add a color to a meal, you're almost inevitably going to be adding some sort of fruit or vegetable or plant-based, ingredient or food. So that would be my first recommendation is when looking at the plate, think of, are 3/4 of the foods coming from plants. So some people do well with that kind of percentage idea, whereas 1/4 of it is coming from animal-based, or 60/40 or 70/30, whatever makes sense to you. And think of it as majority coming from plants, and then thinking of meat as an accessory rather than, okay, we've planned our meat. Now, what else might we have, as a garnish? So,
oh my gosh, that is exactly, you hit it on that. That's exactly the way I plan it. Whoops.
So thinking of it more as perhaps you start thinking of the meat as a garnish, just to kind of in your mind, kind of resituate the thoughts of the meal planning piece of it. But adding color is a good way to start. That'll start you get you going in the right direction.
I love it. That right there. Oh my, you almost hit it on the head here at the Crosby household. So another way of looking at it, the garnish of the meat. Whew, that's a hard one to buy, especially here in Wisconsin. I'm just saying. But Andrea, thank you so much. This is great information. And if people want to learn more, you've got ways of helping people out given COVID. We're still in it, still trying to protect ourselves. But for people that want to find more information or even take a virtual tour, what do you got for them?
Yeah, so go ahead and connect to the links that's given to you to contact me. You can contact me directly and I'll send you the registration link. We regularly, and we will do this, moving forward, regardless of the current situation, we'll offer these virtual services. One of the virtual store tours we have is on plant-based eating. So helping break that down a little bit and then talking specifically about what to look for in the store.
Yeah, everybody's looking for these hot diets and fancy new things, but funny when you really break it down, how it's something you've already been doing a lot of the time, and it's just rethinking and reshaping what you're doing. So thank you so much. Great topic, and we'll look forward to checking back in with you next month for some more. We're getting warmer out, so I feel like you've already started to set us up for some really good summertime meals. So very excited for that. Andrea, thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, sounds great.
All right, Andrea Miller, Hy-Vee. Check out the website, and locally here, she serves all of the stores here in Dane County. I almost said Fitchburg. All the stores in Fitchburg, the one in Fitchburg, but all of them here. And we appreciate her time every time she stops in. We'll take a quick break. More to come. You're watching Talking Fitchburg.